Chris Paul, 11,000 career assists. He's the third player to do it. John Stockton, Jason Kidd. Um, as a guard yourself, as somebody who's played against him for so long, I'm just intrigued by Chris Paul because I feel like he's going to be like they could probably do a documentary on him just on some behind the scenes stories about him either trash talking or just setting up some opponents in some ways. What do you think of first when you think of Chris Paul?
I think a point guard, right? Like a guy who knows how to orchestrate an offense, makes his teammates happy, knows how to get assists, rewards the big fella from running, a mastermind in the pick and roll, and a guy who kept the mid-range shot alive, right? You talk about how the game has evolved. Think about how long you've been covering the game and how it's changed. I've been in the league
Mm-hmm.
10 years, right? It started off with the Spurs dynasty, right? When I got in, the Spurs won the championship and they played through the post. They ran a pick and roll. TP shot mid range, TD shot mid range, Kawhi shot mid range, and they didn't shoot as many threes, right? And now you look at the game and how it's changed to where, Larry came in as, an undersized four. Now he's a backup five. Like the game is shifting and it's changing. And I
Yeah.
think for him to have been able to play through different eras of the game, like he played against D Will in Utah, where it was pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll, a lot of middies. He played in the era where you had real back to the basket fives and a real four, like
Yep.
almost a 7 foot four. To now he's playing with Cam Johnson at the four, who played the two in college. Like the fact that he's able to sustain greatness and be able to lead a team at this age in a different era and different time shows you his greatness. And the fact that he's still breaking records is insane.
I remember one time, this is when I just started recognizing how even early on in his career, there was an admiration from his peers, right? It was the Heat at Pelicans game in New Orleans, and it was Dwayne Wade, peak of his powers, really starting to become a leader after, I guess, Shaq left. And I want to say it was Mario Chalmers, but it was a play early on in the game where they didn't really take Chris Paul very seriously, committed a foul. And I just heard Dwayne Wade say to, I believe, again, Mario Chalmers say, "Come on, man, that's Chris Paul." And I'm like, that's Chris Paul. He hasn't done anything. He's only been here a couple of years, in the league, but they already knew. Dwayne already knew this guy is absolutely special. You cannot disrespect him or not even for the slightest take him for granted because he's going to make you pay. And I knew back then, I was like, man, something about this guy. Everybody recognizes how good he is, even though, again, hasn't made it to a finals, hasn't won a championship yet. It's all just immediate respect.
Yeah, I think his knowledge of the game, ability to manipulate a game, the antics, the ability to draw fouls, to run a pick and roll, to rule changes having to be implemented because of his ability to get a rebound and dribble in front of somebody and stop and fall.
Right,
Like he's,
right.
I mean, he's done a lot of things to make this game better and to make you think about this game. So I would say, I think about the battles of D Will. I think about how, you know, with the Olympic documentary where they talked about it, you get to see young Chris Paul kind of morph into, mature Chris Paul, morph into arguably the best point guard in the world. And now on the back end of his career, still being able to lead a playoff team. I think he went 14 for 14 against us in the playoffs, all tough middies. Like that
Crazy.
shows you his ability to sustain a high level of play, regardless of the circumstances.
So, not to project anything too far ahead, but let's just say hypothetically, Chris Paul maybe doesn't win a championship. Where would he rank on your list when you think of guys, best players to not have won a championship?
That's
If
a
you need
really
some
good
names, I
question.
can throw some names out there for you and
I
see
mean,
what you
Charles
think.
Barkley comes to mind right away just because of TNT and how they always talk about how he doesn't have a ring.
Right, right. But he's a
Um,
bus driver somehow.
he's a bus driver. I mean, you got Mel. Mel's never won a ring.
Mm-hmm.
Give me some more names.
Karl Malone, Dominique Wilkins, Allen Iverson, John Stockton,
Ooh,
Elgin Baylor.
ooh.
Throw James Harden, Steve Nash on that list, Reggie Miller.
I mean, he's amongst them. He's walking in the same rooms as them. He's rubbing shoulders with them. He's top 75 with them, with those guys. So I would say he's in the same room. If he's never able to accomplish those things, you'll say John Stockton, you'll say him, you'll say AI, because those are amongst the greats. They're all greats in their own right, in their own eras, and some of them span across different eras. Obviously, Dominique, obviously Nash. Talking about a guy who's won multiple MVPs. Like, yeah, He's in the same room as them.
I think he is probably, like, as much as I hate to say it, like, I'd have more fun watching Allen Iverson play at his peak, but I think Chris Paul mastered the game more than Allen Iverson. I would say probably similar to John Stockton, probably better scorer than John Stockton, but also mastered the game as well. So I'll put him ahead of John Stockton eventually. I think it is just like, if he would have won one by now, we probably would have already putting him ahead of all those players anyway. And so yeah, I think he's probably going to be like top 3 with Barkley and Carl, probably Malone, or maybe even throw Elgin Baylor in there. Those top 4 is like the best to not win one. If I don't want to do that to him yet, if he doesn't win one.
Well, hopefully he doesn't win one this year, but
Nah.
but no, I think you're spot on. It just kind of shows you how hard it is to win a championship, but also how many great players have fought, have worked, have scratched, have clawed, have climbed, and have fallen short. And it's not a knock on them. It just shows you how competitive the league is and how hard it is to achieve that one lasting goal.